My mother-in-law left my 8-year-old sitting alone on the pavement and walked off to have a good time with her favorite grandkids. She was annoying, my sister-in-law said. When my husband found out, he didn't hesitate. He announced this. My in-laws went very quiet. My mother-in-law left my 8-year-old sitting alone on the pavement and walked off to have a good time with her favorite grandkids. She was annoying, my sister-in-law said. When my husband found out, he didn't hesitate. He announced this. My in-laws went very quiet. My mother-in-law, Brenda, called me at 8:12 a.m. on the 4th of July while I was packing sunscreen into my tote. Let me take Hannah early, she said, bright and breezy. Andrew's sister Sabrina is bringing Carter and Brooklyn. We'll grab a spot by the band before it gets crowded. Andrew looked up from the kitchen counter where he was cutting strawberries, waiting for my answer. Hannah, already in her red, white, and blue sneakers, bounced on her toes. I hesitated because Brenda liked to run things her way, but Hannah was excited to be included. And Andrew gave me a small nod like, it'll be fine. We'll meet you by the food trucks near the bandstand, I said, making it simple on purpose. Brenda laughed. Perfect. We'll see you later. Hannah hugged me fast, then ran out with her little flag and her hair half braided. As the car pulled away, Andrew slid an arm around my waist and kissed the top of my head. We'll be right behind them, he said. I told myself it was just a parade. I didn't know I'd just handed over my whole morning. By the time Andrew and I parked and walked toward Main Street, the air smelled like kettle corn and hot asphalt. The parade had already started. Drums thumping, a high school band blasting off key, kids darting between adults with sticky snow cones. We pushed through the crowd toward the food trucks, scanning for Brenda's stiff blonde bob and Sabrina's loud laugh. I spotted my father-in-law, Dennis, first, arms folded, looking impatient, standing near the curb with Andrew's sister Sabrina and her kids. Carter had a toy sword. Brooklyn wore glittery sunglasses. Brenda waved like we were late for dinner. My eyes flicked left, right behind them. No Hannah. I stepped closer, heart getting sharp. Where's Hannah? I asked, already searching past their shoulders. Dennis shrugged, like the question bored him. Sabrina didn't even look up from her phone. Brenda pointed vaguely toward the street like Hannah might be a balloon drifting somewhere. Andrew's hand tightened around mine. I asked again, louder, because the band had started up another song and the noise swallowed everything. Where is she? And that's when I realized nobody was reaching for her hand. Sabrina finally looked up and grinned like I'd walked into a joke. Relax, she said. She was being annoying. The way she said it, light, amused, made my stomach go cold. Annoying how? I asked. I tried to keep my voice level because Hannah hated conflict, and conflict always made her disappear into herself. Sabrina laughed, a quick bark. You know, complaining, slowing us down, asking questions every 5 seconds. Carter swung his toy sword at the air, nearly hitting a stranger, and Brenda smiled at him like he was charming. I stared at Sabrina. So where is she right now? Andrew's face changed in a tiny way, his eyes narrowing, his jaw setting. Brenda waved a hand like she was brushing crumbs off a table. She's fine, Jenna, she said. You're making this bigger than it is. I felt my skin heat under the sun, and it wasn't from the weather. I scanned the curb again, then the gaps between people, then the side street behind the barricades. My daughter didn't have a phone. She didn't know where we were parked. She was 8 years old in a crowd of strangers. Sabrina's smile didn't move, but the stakes did. Brenda leaned in like she was sharing gossip. She told us her foot hurt, she said, almost laughing. Then she said she couldn't walk. She rolled her eyes. It was drama, Jenna. She wanted attention because Carter and Brooklyn were excited. I stared at her mouth as she said it, like if I watched closely enough, I'd understand how an adult could sound so casual about a child in pain. Her foot hurt, I repeated. Andrew's head snapped toward Brenda. What do you mean she couldn't walk? He asked, voice low. Brenda shrugged. Kids exaggerate. If we stopped every time someone had a complaint, we'd never get anywhere. Sabrina smirked. She was doing that thing where she drags her feet and sighs like she's 40. Dennis chuckled once like it was all entertainment. I felt my fingers go numb around my tote strap. Okay, I said, forcing calm. So you stayed with her, right? You sat her down until we got here. Brenda blinked slowly like I was being difficult on purpose. We told her to sit, she said. She was safe. Brenda and Sabrina said safe like it was a guess. Sabrina tipped her chin toward the far end of the block where the crowd got thicker near the barricades. We told her to sit on the curb, she said, casual as ordering fries. She wouldn't stop whining, and we weren't missing the parade because she wanted to be dramatic. My lungs stopped working for a second. You left her? I asked. Sabrina's laugh came again, brighter this time. Left, sat, same thing. She's 8, not a baby. Brenda nodded along. She can follow directions. I could hear the marching band, the cheering, the whistle of a police officer directing traffic, but all of it was suddenly far away. Andrew stepped forward. Show me, he said, clipped. Sabrina pointed again, but her finger didn't land anywhere specific. Over there somewhere, she said. By the lemonade stand, or maybe closer to the strollers? Wherever she was sitting, she'll still be sitting, Brenda added. And if she got up, that's on her. I looked at the sidewalk packed with legs, folding chairs, wagons, and toddlers in headphones. You don't even know where she is, I said. Brenda and Sabrina had lost my child like you lose a spot in line. Andrew didn't argue. He just took off, pushing gently but firmly through the bodies, calling, Hannah! I followed, my tote slamming against my hip, my eyes searching every patch of sidewalk and every face at kid height. Hannah, I yelled, trying to keep panic out of my voice because panic didn't help. Panic didn't find children. We moved along the barricades, peering behind folding chairs, behind coolers, around wagons stacked with blankets. A woman with a double stroller glared when I leaned in to check the gap beside her wheel. Sorry, I said, already moving. Andrew waved at a volunteer in a bright vest. Have you seen an 8-year-old girl? Brown hair, blue dress? The volunteer shook his head, distracted by the parade float rolling by. The crowd surged, blocking the sidewalk as a group tried to cross. I squeezed past anyway, hearing my own breathing too loud. I pictured Hannah's face when she tried to be brave, chin up, eyes glossy, mouth tight. Andrew split left. I went right, both of us calling her name like it was a rope we could throw across the noise. I checked behind a line of porta-potties. I checked the curb near a lamppost. Every second felt heavier. And then I saw a small blue dress near the pavement. Hannah was sitting alone on the curb between 2 strangers' lawn chairs, hugging her knees like she was trying to make herself smaller. Her little flag lay on the ground beside her. The stick snapped. She wasn't sobbing, but her cheeks were wet, and she was blinking hard like she was holding the rest back with willpower. I dropped to my knees so fast my tote spilled sunscreen and a water bottle onto the sidewalk. Baby, I said, touching her shoulder. She flinched, then melted into me when she realized it was me. Andrew crouched on her other side, his hands hovering like he didn't want to startle her. Hannah whispered, Grandma said I was too slow. Her voice was thin, like she'd been saving it. I swallowed. Where does it hurt? I asked, already looking at her feet. She pointed, embarrassed. My heel. I tried to walk, but it felt like fire. Andrew's eyes flicked to the crowd behind us, then back to her, scanning for danger like he could rewind time and place his body between her and everyone. I tugged her shoe gently, and she sucked in a breath through her teeth. The sock came off, and red hit the sunlight. Her heel had a raw blister the size of a nickel, split open and bleeding into her white sock. It looked angry and fresh, like it had been rubbing for hours. Hannah tried to smile through it. It's okay, she said too fast. Like she was saying what adults wanted. I can walk now. Andrew didn't answer. He slid one arm under her knees and one behind her back and lifted her like she weighed nothing. We're leaving, he said flat. I grabbed the scattered sunscreen and water and followed as he carried her through the crowd, shoulders squared, eyes forward. On our way back to the car, Brenda and Sabrina were still by the food trucks when we passed them. Brenda opened her mouth, probably to explain again. Andrew walked past without stopping. Sabrina called, "Oh my God, you're so dramatic." Andrew didn't turn his head. In the car, Hannah leaned against my shoulder while I pressed a napkin to her heel. Andrew drove with both hands locked on the wheel, silent the whole way home. That night, he didn't speak at dinner. Didn't speak during Hannah's bath. Didn't speak when I wrapped her foot and tucked her in. He just sat at the edge of the bed and watched her breathe. The next morning, Andrew finally broke his silence. I met Andrew little over 2 years earlier, through a mutual friend's backyard barbecue, back when it was just me and Hannah. Hannah was 6 then, and my whole life ran on school drop-offs and grocery lists. He didn't come in loud. He didn't try to win Hannah with candy or big promises. He just started showing up, helping carry chairs, refilling drinks, asking me normal questions like what I did for work and what Hannah liked to read. When Hannah wandered over and hovered near the cooler, Andrew crouched to her level and said, "Hey, I'm Andrew. You don't have to talk to me if you don't want to." Hannah stared at him like she was deciding if he was safe. He didn't reach for her, he just stepped back and let her choose. Later, when I walked Hannah to my car, Andrew kept his distance and said, "If we ever do this again, I want to go at her pace." No one had ever said that to me before. Her pace. That was how he was with everything. Permission, patience, no pressure. And because he didn't push, Hannah got curious. She'd peek around corners to watch him. She'd ask me small questions about him. He wasn't trying to be her dad. He was trying to be steady. The first real crack in her wall happened a few months later. By then, Hannah had just turned 7. She knocked over grape juice on my kitchen floor. She bumped her cup reaching for a napkin, and purple juice poured across the tile like a spill in a confession. Hannah froze with her hands up, eyes wide, waiting for the part where an adult gets sharp and mean. Andrew had been helping me put groceries away. He looked down, then up at Hannah's face, and something gentle settled over him. "No worries," he said like the mess was nothing. He grabbed paper towels, knelt down and started blotting. Hannah didn't move. She just watched him like she didn't understand the script had changed. Andrew glanced up and added, "Accidents happen. You can help me if you want." Hannah slowly grabbed a towel and dabbed at the edge of the spill. Her shoulders loosened as she did it. I saw at the exact moment her body stopped bracing. After we finished, Andrew tossed the wet towels in the trash and said, "Teamwork?" Hannah's mouth twitched, almost a smile, and she went back to her homework like she'd been given permission to exist without punishment. I caught Andrew's eye, and he gave me the smallest shrug, like this was obvious. That was the first time she believed safe could be real. After that, Andrew earned Hannah the slow way, the only way that lasts. He remembered she hated crust on sandwiches, and that she liked her socks inside out because the seams bothered her toes. He showed up for her school open house and stood quietly in the back until she spotted him, then he smiled like she'd done something brave. He never made her call him dad. He never hinted that he deserved it. He just kept promises. If he said he'd be at pickup, he was there. If he said they'd go to the library on Saturday, he didn't forget when something more fun came up. He kept her drawings in a folder in his desk, like they were important documents. One night, I found him taping a crooked stick figure picture to the inside of a kitchen cabinet. "What are you doing?" I asked. He looked almost embarrassed. "She'll see it when she gets cereal," he said. Hannah opened that cabinet the next morning and froze, then reached up and traced her own drawing with her fingertip. "You saved it," she whispered. Andrew nodded. "Of course I did." Her whole face softened. It wasn't fireworks. It was quieter than that. It was trust turning into routine. He built her safety one small promise at a time. The first dinner at Brenda and Dennis's house should have warned me the way storms warn you. Hair too still. Smiles too tight. Sabrina was already there with Carter and Brooklyn, and Brenda practically ran to the door when we arrived. "There's my babies," she sang, scooping Brooklyn up and kissing her cheeks. Carter got a fist bump from Dennis and a fresh cookie before his shoes were off. When we walked in, Hannah stayed close to my side, her hand tucked into mine. Brenda turned, looked Hannah up and down, and her smile thinned. "Oh," she said, polite like a cashier. "So this is your child?" The words landed wrong. Your child, not our granddaughter, not Hannah, just a category. Hannah's grip tightened. Andrew cleared his throat. "Hi, Mom," he said, careful. Brenda kissed his cheek, then looked past Hannah again like she was furniture. At the table, Brenda asked Sabrina's kids about their summer plans, their favorite floats, their sports. Hannah tried once, quietly. "I like the drumline." Brenda nodded without looking. Sabrina snorted. "Of course you do." I kept my expression neutral because I wanted peace, because I wanted this to work, because Andrew loved his family even when they were sharp. In Brenda's house, love had a seating chart. Not long after that, the pattern showed itself in small, ugly ways. One afternoon at a family cookout, Hannah tugged my sleeve and whispered, "My shoes hurt." I knelt to check, and Sabrina's head snapped toward us. "Oh my God," she said loudly, rolling her eyes. "Here we go. Princess Hannah has a blister." Brenda chimed in from her lawn chair, sipping iced tea. "She's always got something," she said, like Hannah was a habit she didn't like. Attention-seeking runs in kids these days. Hannah's face shut down instantly. She straightened up and said, "It's fine," even though her eyes had that wet shine again. Andrew came over with a plate of burgers and asked gently, "Do you want to change shoes?" Hannah shook her head too fast. "No," she said. "I'm okay." Later in the car, I told Andrew it bothered me. He exhaled and said, "They're used to Sabrina running the show. I'll handle it." But handle it became smoothing things over, redirecting, trying to keep the peace so holidays didn't explode. And Hannah learned the lesson Brenda and Sabrina kept teaching: pain was inconvenient, and speaking up made you dramatic. By the time she turned 8, she didn't complain anymore. She just got quiet. By 8, my daughter was already training herself not to limp. Back home that afternoon, I sat Hannah on the closed toilet lid and ran warm water in the tub. I cleaned the blister carefully, the way you handle something that hurts just to look at. Hannah watched my hands like she was watching for a reaction. "I'm sorry," she blurted. "I didn't mean to slow them down." The words hit me harder than the blister did. "Stop," I said gently, keeping my voice calm on purpose. "You never apologize for pain." Hannah's eyebrows pulled together, confused like I'd spoken a different language. "But Grandma said," she started, then stopped herself like she wasn't allowed to finish. I dried her heel, put on antibiotic ointment, and wrapped it in gauze. "Your body tells you things," I said. "If it hurts, you say so. That's not drama, that's information." Hannah stared at the bandage like it was proof she'd done something wrong. "I should have just walked," she whispered. "No," I said, firmer. "You should have been helped." She swallowed and nodded like she understood, but I could tell she was filing it away as a rule she wasn't sure she was allowed to follow. When I carried her to bed, she said sorry one more time under her breath, like a reflex she couldn't break. She said sorry like it was automatic. Andrew was in the hallway when Hannah, half asleep, mumbled. Grandma said, "Stop making drama." She didn't know he was there. She thought she was just talking to me, admitting something the way kids confess in the dark. I felt Andrew's whole body go still behind me. I turned my head and saw his face blank, controlled, like a door had shut. "Hannah?" he said softly, stepping closer. "Can you say that again?" Hannah's eyes popped open, instantly worried. "It's nothing," she said, scrambling. I reached for her hand. "It's okay," I told her. Andrew kept his voice gentle, but there was something iron underneath. "What did Grandma say?" he asked. Hannah looked at me like she was asking if she was allowed. I nodded. She swallowed. "She said I was too slow and stop making drama." Andrew nodded once. "Slow. Thank you for telling me," he said. Then he kissed her forehead and walked into our bedroom without another word. When I followed, he was standing by the window, staring out at the dark street like he was watching something approach. He didn't rant. He didn't pace. He just breathed, measured. Andrew's face went blank in a way I hadn't seen before. The next morning, after Hannah went back to sleep with her foot propped on a pillow, Andrew set his phone on speaker at the kitchen table. I sat across from him, my coffee untouched. He dialed Brenda first, then added Dennis, then Sabrina. Their voices piled in at once. Brenda cheerful, Dennis gruff. Sabrina already annoyed. Andrew didn't do small talk. "You abandoned Hannah in a crowd," he said, precise. "She couldn't walk. You left her sitting on a curb alone." Brenda scoffed. "Abandoned is such a dramatic word." Sabrina jumped in. "She was fine. You people act like she was kidnapped." Dennis muttered. "Kids need to toughen up." Andrew's eyes didn't flicker. "She had a bleeding blister," he said. "She told you she was in pain. You decided the parade mattered more than her safety." Brenda's tone sharpened. "We didn't know she was really hurt. She always says something hurts." Sabrina laughed. "She's always whining for attention." Andrew leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice still calm. "When you made Hannah feel disposable," he said, "you made yourselves disposable to me." The line went quiet. No apology, no argument, just silence so heavy it felt like a choice. I could hear their breathing through the phone. Andrew ended the call without waiting for them to fill the silence. Then he opened his banking app like he was checking the weather. "What are you doing?" I asked, even though I already knew. He didn't look up. "I'm stopping the support," he said. For months, years, he'd been sending his parents money because Brenda always had a tight month, and Dennis always had a temporary situation. It added up to $800 toward their rent, $250 for a car payment, $150 for a phone bill every month, like an automatic obligation. He clicked into the scheduled payments and canceled them one by one, calm, methodical. "Andrew," I said quietly, because cutting off family money felt like a cliff. He finally looked at me. "They left her," he said. "They don't get access to her. They don't get access to me." He didn't say it like revenge. He said it like a policy. Then he opened our shared calendar and deleted the next Grandma's Day brunch we'd planned. And he texted Brenda one line: "No unsupervised time with Hannah. Do not ask." I watched his thumbs move. Steady. He didn't raise his voice. He pressed cancel. Brenda called back within minutes, voice sharp enough to cut. "You can't do this," she snapped. "After everything we've done for you." Sabrina was yelling in the background like a chorus. Andrew put it on speaker again. "This is retaliation," Brenda said. "You're punishing us over one little misunderstanding." Andrew didn't flinch. "It wasn't a misunderstanding," he said. "It was a decision you made in a crowd." Sabrina jumped in, loud and nasty. "She's not even your kid." The words hung in the kitchen like smoke. I felt my stomach tighten, not because it surprised me, but because Hannah had probably felt that energy every time Brenda looked past her. Andrew's expression didn't change. He blinked once, slow, and his voice went even calmer. "Watch me prove she is," he said. Brenda started to talk over him. "You owe—" Sabrina shouted something else. Dennis grumbled. Andrew didn't argue. He didn't negotiate. He just hit the red button and ended the call. The quiet afterward felt clean, like a room after you open a window. I exhaled without realizing I'd been holding my breath. Andrew set the phone down and looked toward the hallway where Hannah slept. "We're done," he said, almost to himself. Then Andrew hung up, and I knew we were done. Brenda didn't come back with an apology. She came back with a performance. 2 days later, my phone lit up with screenshots from cousins I barely talked to. Brenda had posted a long emotional message on Facebook about sacrifice and ungrateful children. She claimed she had supported Andrew through school, that she'd kept him afloat, that he owed his success to her and Dennis. She didn't mention Hannah by name, but she didn't have to. The comments filled fast. Sad face emojis, family is family, you only get one mom, and a few people tagging Andrew like it was a public trial. Then the calls started. Aunt Peggy left a voicemail that began with a sigh and ended with, "Be the bigger person." A cousin texted, "Your mom's crying." Dennis's brother called Andrew and said, "This is embarrassing." Andrew listened to exactly one call, expression unreadable, then set his phone down and said, "She's trying to buy sympathy." I watched him scroll Brenda's post, not reacting, like he was reading a receipt instead of a story. "Do you want to respond?" I asked. Andrew's eyes flicked up. "Not with feelings," he said. "With facts?" She was trying to rewrite our lives in real time. That night, Andrew opened a folder on his laptop labeled Payments, like he'd been quietly preparing for this exact moment. He didn't rant. He didn't type in anger. He posted screenshots, dates, amounts, bank transfers, showing what Brenda and Dennis had actually paid for him. Almost nothing. Then he posted what he'd been asked to cover for Sabrina over the years. Car repairs, deposits, emergency cash, vacations disguised as help. And finally, he posted what he'd been sending Brenda and Dennis every month consistently. The $800, the $250, the $150, totaling $1,200. His caption was one sentence: "Since my parents are sharing family finances publicly, here are the numbers." Within minutes, the comment section changed. People stopped cheering Brenda on. A few deleted their earlier comments. Someone wrote, "So, you were taking money from him?" Another asked, "Why were you getting rent paid if you supported him?" Brenda didn't reply. Dennis didn't. Sabrina tried once with a snarky comment about fake receipts, but the timestamps did the talking. My phone went quiet too. The same relatives who had been so eager to call in guilt Andrew suddenly had errands, dinners, silence. The loudest thing on the post became the silence. 3 days after that, I got a call from Hannah's summer program office while I was folding laundry. The secretary's voice was polite but firm. "Hi Jenna," she said. "We have a situation." My spine went straight. "What kind of situation?" I asked, already walking to the kitchen. "A woman named Brenda is here," the secretary said. "She's claiming to be Hannah's grandmother. She wants to pick her up early from the program." My hands started shaking, but my voice stayed calm. "She's not on the pickup list," I said. "Do not release Hannah." The secretary didn't hesitate. "We won't," she said. "She's insisting. She says you're keeping family away." I heard muffled noise in the background, like Brenda's voice rising. "Tell her," I said, choosing each word, "that she needs to leave. If she doesn't, call security or the police." The secretary said, "Understood," and hung up. Andrew was home within 10 minutes, moving fast but controlled, like he'd shifted into a mode I hadn't seen before. We met the program director in the lobby while Brenda stood near the office window, lips tight, trying to look wronged. She saw Andrew and lifted her chin like she expected him to fold. Andrew didn't stop walking. That's when the fight moved to the doorway of the program office. The program staff didn't let Brenda win a single inch. The director told her clearly that she wasn't authorized. Brenda's face pinched, and she tried a softer voice. "I'm her grandma," she said like the title should unlock doors. "I just want to see her." The program director didn't budge. "You're not on the list," she repeated. Brenda's eyes snapped to me. "This is Jenna," she said, pointing like I was a problem to be solved. "She's manipulating my son." Andrew stepped forward, his shoulders squared but his tone flat. "Don't come to her school again," he said. Brenda's mouth opened, ready. Sabrina wasn't there, but I could hear her in Brenda's posture. The practiced outrage. "You're tearing this family apart," Brenda hissed. Andrew didn't argue. "You did that," he said. "When you left Hannah on the curb." Brenda flinched, like he'd slapped her with the truth. She tried again, softer, eyes shiny. "I said I was sorry," she whispered. Andrew's expression didn't change. "You blamed her," he said. "That's not sorry." We walked out with Hannah 20 minutes later, her backpack bouncing, unaware of most of it. In the car, Andrew took a slow breath and said, "No contact. Permanent." His thumb hovered over his phone, then moved. His thumb hovered, then he muted their threads and started blocking numbers. After the school incident, the extended family suddenly developed boundaries of their own, mostly because the story had stopped working. Aunt Peggy stopped calling. The cousin who'd texted, "Your mom's crying," never followed up. The group chat went from active to dead like someone had pulled the plug. Brenda tried a different angle next. Long messages that started with, "I'm sorry you feel hurt," and ended with, "But Hannah really does overreact." Every apology came with a hook. Every love you came with blame. Andrew didn't respond. He archived everything. When Brenda tried emailing, he filtered it. When Dennis tried calling from a different number, Andrew let it ring, and then blocked it too. Hannah asked once, cautiously, "Are we going to Grandma's again?" Andrew crouched beside her and said, "No, not anymore." He didn't say it like a punishment. He said it like a safety rule. Hannah nodded slowly like she'd been waiting for an adult to finally choose her without qualifiers. That night, Andrew and I sat at the table and made a list of every place Brenda could try to push: school activities, neighbors, pickup lists. And we tightened each one quietly, methodically. It wasn't dramatic. It was maintenance. Peace isn't loud, but it holds. Andrew didn't stop at blocking numbers. Within a week, he scheduled a consultation and came home with a stack of paperwork. Hannah's biological father had been out of the picture for years, and he'd already signed the consent forms. "I'm going to adopt Hannah," he said like he was stating tomorrow's weather. My throat tightened. "You don't have to," I started. He cut me off gently. "I want to," he said. "And I'm doing it now." There were forms, background checks, home visits, letters from teachers, notarized documents, real steps that took time and patience. Hannah sat at the table coloring while Andrew filled out page after page. occasionally asking me for dates or addresses. At one point, Hannah looked up and said, "Is this about Grandma?" Andrew paused, then answered honestly. "It's about you," he said. "It's about making sure nobody can ever treat you like you're optional." Hannah stared at him for a long second, then slid a drawing across the table, stick figures labeled me, Mom, Andrew, and a house with a big door. Andrew took it and tucked it into the paperwork folder like it belonged there. He wasn't just drawing a boundary. He was changing her future. A year later, we sat in a small courtroom in suburban Illinois, with Hannah in a simple dress and her hair neatly combed. Her heel had long healed, but something else had healed too: her posture, her voice, the way she walked into a room like she had a right to be there. Andrew wore a suit that didn't quite match his shoulders, and he kept smoothing the same spot on his tie like his hands needed something to do. The judge smiled at Hannah and asked her kindly if she understood what was happening. Hannah nodded, serious. "Yes," she said. The judge asked, "And what do you want to say?" Hannah looked at Andrew, then at me, and then she faced forward. "That's my dad," she said, clear as anything. Andrew's eyes shined, but he didn't crumble. He just breathed out slow, like he'd been holding something for years and could finally set it down. I glanced toward the back, half expecting a shadow. But Brenda and Sabrina weren't inside. They were outside our lives now, where they belonged. When the judge signed the final page, Andrew squeezed Hannah's hand and Hannah squeezed back without hesitation. On the way out, Hannah skipped, down the courthouse steps. And I thought about that parade curb and how one cruel decision had rearranged everything. Was Andrew right to cut them off, or would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.